After two installments from Capcom, the Devil May Cry series built a so-so reputation. On the one hand, its debut was an experimental surprise hit and was responsible for introducing a new genre, whereas its sequel was an embarrassment on many fronts, like the unbalanced combat and Dante's jarring turn in persona. Fortunately, Devil May Cry 2 was commercially successful and was enough for the Japanese company to make another game, but Hideaki Itsuno, once again, was overseeing the project. Despite the development hell of DMC2, Itsuno didn't want the next game to be just as dreadful, if not worse than its predecessor, and so in 2005, he and his team would deliver on that objective, with Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, a game that saved the series from a premature end and is still a blast to this day.
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Taking place before the Malay Island incident, you control a more youthful Dante, who hasn't yet opened up his business, let alone name it. Anyhow, a person called Arkham delivers a message to him, an invitation from his twin brother, Virgil, hoping the protagonist accepts his offer. However, before Dante can think this through, whilst eating a slice of pizza, he is ambushed by demons from all angles, yet being the son of Sparta, he easily repels the horde. Given it's been a year since their last meeting, Dante accepts Virgil's offer. Meanwhile, a young woman also has unresolved family matters and does encounter Dante on multiple occasions. But, little do they know, they're on a course on uncovering a pressing revelation.
No doubt you've got some fun planned for me, right, Virgil?
Saying Devil May Cry 3 as a turnaround would be an understatement because of how poor its predecessor was, so the first objective for Capcom was to bring the game in line with what made Devil May Cry great. Gone is the awkward directional combo system, excluding moves that rely on a lock-on mechanic, as it reverts to delayed inputs and altering attacks affecting your stylish ranking, just like in the original. But this time, a meter indicates whether you're about to lose your style rank. Beneficial indeed, since previous games didn't show whether you're doing enough, and now Dante can wield two melee and ranged weapons, plus he can switch between them on the fly. While sorting out your composition is done either before missions or at divinity statues, you no longer have to pause the action for altering what swords or firearms Dante wields. By the way, guns aren't too powerful like they were in DMC2, even when you upgrade them, and function to keep enemies back in addition to extended combos, as they should. Like before, red orbs gathered are for purchasing new moves, improved Dante's HP, extending his devil trigger gauge, etc, though for story purposes the latter isn't available right away. Attacking demons and taunting them with Phil's DT. Thankfully you can't use it as a get out jail free card like in DMC2, which became overpowered when Dante's health was critical. Still, his attacks are made stronger whilst recovering HP, but only for a limited period, and he's still vulnerable to enemy blows if not careful. DMC2's levels were enormous, though they weren't interesting from a design standpoint, as well as not encouraging exploration. Those in DMC3 are nowhere near as bland and forgettable as their predecessor. Sure, some areas have compulsory backtracking, though this pales over DMC2's level design. Besides, the original did have these moments, and I haven't mentioned their verticality, which is no different here. At least now you can navigate its environments thanks to the map displaying your destination. Secret missions make a return, all having unique challenges, and finishing them rewards you blue orb fragments, which contribute to increasing Dante's HP. Combat adjudicators also contain these fragments, requiring combo ingenuity with a given weapon, but the reward is no less fulfilling. And yes, some are in the levels waiting for you to pick up, just like the other items which aid Dante in his quest. Although you can purchase blue orbs with red ones, doing these are imperative for maxing it out. Before I move on, there are puzzles, though these are sparse given the combat is at DMC3's forefront, whilst not being difficult to solve, whether it's smashing spheres together or manipulating light beams to get a specific item. Perhaps the main feature of DMC3 is the style system, each one altering how you deal with threats, providing new moves, in addition to becoming more effective when they level up. Two more you unlock later, though regardless which one you choose, whether it's the mobility of Trickster, the melee-focused Swordmaster, keeping your distance with Gunslinger, or the risk versus reward approach of Royal Guard, they add further depth to combat. After all, there's no better feeling of utilising your chosen style, with weapons you've acquired and mastered along Dante's journey, especially now enemies aren't pushovers.
This just keeps getting better and better.
The bosses are no different, but most Gurdon Dante a new weapon or ability upon defeat, plus you retain these and any upgrades for future playthroughs. Strangely, there's a boss rush mission with previously fought opponents, as it gives the impression you must beat all of them to advance. Luckily this isn't the case, but why the deception and unnecessary padding? Regardless of what Dante encounters, this would mean nothing without good controls. Fortunately, DMC3 delivers in this regard. As highlighted earlier, performing combos is done by delaying inputs and switching weapons, though some moves rely upon locking onto a chosen enemy whilst moving the left analog stick in a specific direction. Likewise, evading strikes require locking on, although jumping can suffice in the right circumstances. Individual buttons are reconfigurable, and while the default is adequate, this option is helpful for anyone who wishes to adjust their setup. Case in point, Capcom did a solid job with them, and through experience with an ever-growing arsenal, they facilitate the pursuit for stylish rankings, but that's not to say there weren't annoyances. This hallway in particular has blades you must avoid, which is fine when moving towards them, but when travelling in the opposite direction, the camera doesn't pull back enough so you can spot those hazards. It also has difficulties tracking Dante when the action gets frantic, which can be irksome when you can't see where enemies are and intend to inflict harm. Fortunately, they have audio cues to their moves, so you don't always have to rely on their visual signals. However, while Dante will be fighting a variety of demons, not all enemies are well designed. The Dullahan, for instance, is immune from frontal assault, thereby you must target their weak spot behind them. Yet your chance to exploit this is after their lunge attack, or by using Devil Trigger to increase your mobility, but otherwise, they'll keep tracking Dante by facing him. There are sections where they follow a fixed path, but even so, they don't gel within DMC3's combat loop, especially when it encourages prolonging combos. Aside from its problems, DMC3 is still fun in the gameplay department, but its storytelling is on another level. Dante begins aloof and doesn't know his place, but soon accepts of who he is and the responsibility of keeping humanity safe. In addition, the cocky attitude is back in full force, undeterred by his enemies to test his vocabulary and showmanship. Needless to say, if you thought Dante was zestful in the first game, DMC3 cranks it up to 11. Conversely, Virgil is a reserved, apathetic individual who strikes with efficiency and precision. His introduction perfectly illustrates he is not a person to mess with, so much so, Virgil's first lines of dialogue regulate the music simultaneously, and the Hell Vanguard, who gave Dante trouble earlier, he takes down with one strike. Furthermore, their beliefs are a far cry from each other, as Dante dismisses his demonic side, whereas Virgil embraces his, because he believes that, without it, he wouldn't be able to protect anyone, including himself. Virgil's reasoning for more power makes him an interesting character, and even Arkham alongside is no different. The relationship between himself and Lady, or going by her real name Mary, is why the latter is present, since Arkham killed his wife and thus Lady's mother as a sacrifice for demonic power. She feels responsible for avenging her mother's death, but still wants to believe there's good in the father she loves, when in actuality it couldn't be further from the truth. Even when Lady does settle the score, her sorrow erupts into one of the most touching scenes in a video game. She may be a capable fighter, but it's her arc and characterization that's compelling. Lady even influences Dante on the importance of family, further motivating the protagonist to overcome Virgil, which is engrossing, with both becoming stronger as the plot develops. Their rivalry culminates towards an emotionally charged climax, followed by an epilogue with a sense of pathos and maturity. One more thing, there is a jester-like character who appears at specific points, giving our white-haired hero some advice whilst being ostentatious in the process. That said, the stellar voice acting, with the level of nicety and juxtaposition on display, DMC3's story is riveting from start to finish. The score by Tetsuya Shibata is also praiseworthy, with Virgil's second boss fight theme being a standout, and like with all solid soundtracks, it will stay in your mind long after turning off the console. Like with my previous Devil May Cry videos, this is a PS4 port you're looking at, showcasing sharp, upscale visuals plus a smooth frame rate, including those within the in-game cutscenes. However, their pre-rendered counterparts show a lack of anti-aliasing, although after mulling it over, this is probably a side effect of displaying non-HD visuals on modern screens. Overall, Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening is an entertaining game and a return to form. The combat is fun, the style system adds depth, and the story is compelling whilst having its poignant moments. Admittedly, it suffers from questionable game design, not to mention some suspect camera work, yet with everything else firing on all cylinders, they're not enough to bring down the experience. For Hideaki Itsuno and those who collaborated on the game's development, their ardour is evident everywhere you ascertain. Plus, there must have been a sense of joy and ease when it got overwhelming playing, especially where the series was in terms of quality, as well as its dubious future. In the end, all perturbation waned away, simply because the game was successful, and a year later they would publish a special edition with additional features, like Virgil being playable, a semi-optional boss, and a new difficulty level among many others, which this HD port has. In short, Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening is one hell of a party.
Woo!